Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to week 4. Week 3 was a lovely week for us, personally winning over $35,000 Rooskies on all the slates, and the community did a lovely job. The first looks are a fun time, but it's also a time to actually look at what happened in week 3 and what has happened through the first 3 weeks and injuries and things along those lines and how they could impact week 4. Now, I am recording this on Monday morning at 9 a.m. Literally the first time I'm looking at these salaries. The first time, so we don't have all the information we need by any means for injuries. We don't have all the information that we need in terms of routes run and all that data that comes out usually Monday afternoon. So after watching the accelerated tape, it takes about 10 minutes if you speed it up on every single one of these games and understanding what happened from a stats and scoring and all that type of opportunities projections, not knowing routes yet, we feel pretty good about looking for a first look. And we're going to have fun with this, of course, right? Last week, T. Higgins was in my first look. He's obviously hurt, so you're not playing these lineups, but we're trying to get a first read on what these salaries are looking like, a reaction-style video. These are fun, they're casual, but they're still informational and entertainment involved in them. What's the point otherwise? Hit you with the schmacks with some info, hit you with the schmacks with some entertainment. So let's get into this. If you enjoy this content right now, if you've seen me in the past, and if it's your first time, it's great to meet you. Please do hit the subscribe button. Let's slide into this first look lineup. We'll build a cash and even a GPP lineup. So we slide into it and we start at the quarterback position. Now on my other screen over here, full disclosure, I have up the totals for next week's games. And by next week's games, but depending on when you're watching this, it could be this week's games. And we have a couple, not nearly as many 50-plus point totals. A 55-point total for the Chiefs and Eagles. So you see Mahomes at the top. We'll see where Jalen Hurts is. A 50.5-point total for the Panthers and Cowboys. That Panthers, good defense, although it kept getting banged up. They lose Horn, their top pick in the first round. Cowboys, we'll see what they do tonight on Monday Night Football. A nice total for the Vikings and Browns game. And then a massive total in the afternoon for the Cardinals and Rams. Decent total for Seahawks and 49ers. So those are some of the high total games. You get Mahomes up here. I'm honestly not too interested in playing Mahomes in cash, at least. In GPPs, I can go right back to the well for a similarly priced Patrick Mahomes, who had a floor game last week of 25 fantasy points, right? A floor game of where in the first half he's got like 5 points and puts up 20 in the second half, like it's almost nothing. Josh Allen finally breaks out and now he gets Houston, and that's a great matchup for $8,000. Kyler's price point drops. He gets the rushing touchdown, nothing in the air. Now gets the Rams. We just saw what the Rams did against Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. Brady gets there for 400 yards, and almost like 150 of that or more was basically in garbage time. Lamar's on here, Russell Wilson. So we're looking at some nice quarterbacks here. It's just like price-wise, they don't stand out. GPPs, of course, for stacking. We can look at that after we build this cash lineup. But Russell Wilson looks good against San Fran. You just saw Rodgers have a lovely game against them, do whatever he wanted. I expect DK Metcalf to be good. Lockett came back after injury, so that's okay. Stafford continues to be, I would say, underpriced and underappreciated. A 54 implied total for week 4 right now. Stafford this past week going for 4 touchdown passes, I believe. He basically was hitting everybody. He even gets, 4 touchdown passes. He even gets in the involvement of Deshaun Jackson for a 100-yard game. He just is playing so well right now. Second 300-yard game. You can expect a ton of passing attempts again. We'll see if Henderson misses, because that's even more skewing towards the pass for a team that does want to run the ball, though. So let's see here. So now you get the opposite side as an underdog, but still coming in that 55 and point total. This Philadelphia Eagles team, this is going to be a really fun game. They're getting Kansas City, dead last ranked secondary right now. This is a good spot for Jalen Hurts at 6,900. We'll see what he does on Monday Night Football, but 144 rushing yards and a touchdown on the ground so far. That looks really good. Rodgers is here. Dak Prescott is here. I know the matchup against Carolina is tough, but he's at home. They have over a 51 implied total for this game. Carolina lost 3 defensive players in that last game. J.C. Horn for an extended period of time. So Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott, the guys who are actually playing each other on Monday Night Football Week 3, these look like the guys who really stand out for me. Hurts obviously gives you the mobility. Dak Prescott, it's going to be a similar implied total here. Hurts playing from behind. Prescott at home in this one, I believe, is going to be a slight favorite. So this is one where it's just kind of a coin flip at this point. I'll put Dak Prescott in our cash lineup right now for $6,700, but we can look at the rest of the quarterbacks, see if there's any other values. Cousins in a nice total game. Cousins continues to ball out. Just very underappreciated. Continues to go off. That's now 2 out of 3 games of 300 or more passing yards. He's got 2 touchdowns in at least every single game. And the guy's averaging like 26 fantasy points right now. And another good matchup against Cleveland, who's much better against the run so far. Secondary has been a little bit shaky, obviously, what they just did. This past weekend's game is less about their secondary, more about the problems on Chicago, what they're having right now. So Cousins and GPPs make sense. Tannehill, Baker, Darnold. Nothing else is standing out for like cash. Like Darnold looks fine at 6K. He's at least worth mentioning against Dallas, especially if they don't look good tonight. But Diggs looks good in the secondary. They have Anthony Brown. The secondary looks improved so far through 2 games this year. We'll see what happens on Monday night. Daniel Jones is down here. Was a popular play last week. Daniel Jones does not come through for many people last week. Saquon Barkley ends up getting there for some people, of course. We'll be interested to see what his price point is. Jimmy G in the 5. There's not much down here. Like, these are stationary quarterbacks. Big Ben is washed as it gets. Matt Ryan in like his best games is scoring you 18 15 to 20 points these days, which is the floor of so many of these other guys. Justin Fields, no thank you. People owned him at 6% clip last week. No thank you on Justin Fields. That line and Justin Fields himself is raw. They knew this Chicago. That's why Andy Dalton's been playing. Every single media and touting person out there wants to say, why are they playing? Why won't they play Justin Fields? Dalton stinks. Well, the offensive line is really bad. Dalton might not be the greatest, but Justin Fields is not ready. We saw that in the preseason. He did not know how to read blitz pickups. He was very raw as a product. They knew this. Chicago knew this. Their organization, I assume, knows that he is not ready. Thus why he has not been starting this season. And the injury forced him to start him. It's going to get bad in Chicago. I put a tweet out. Real bad in Chicago. If in 2 to 3 weeks, this offensive line is still bad. Fields looks as bad as he did in that last game. Yeah, he got sacked a lot, but some of those sacks were on him, and he looked bad. I don't care what you tell me. Andy Dalton threw for more than 47 yards in a couple of those games. Field potential, all there. But for right now, I'd be concerned. You might have to start Nick Foles in like 2 or 3 weeks for Chicago. That whole city would fucking burn down. But there's nothing down here. Brissett, 51. Like, there's nothing down here that I'm playing in cash games. There's a bunch of backups now. I don't even see a single guy in the 5K range that looks good for like a cash type build. No thank you on Matt Ryan. Jimmy G, no thank you there against Seattle, who's struggling against the run. That's a good spot to run the ball. Nothing in cash stands out. Daniel Jones is now priced up for 5K range. Yeah, we're just going to go with either Dak or Jalen. Like, it looks pretty straightforward. You either pay all the way up if you have enough value. We'll see what the other positions have us at now. And you go get a Kyler Murray, or you just play Jalen Hurts or Dak. I mean, if you're trying to build an optimal lineup, that makes a lot of sense. Let's now slide to the running back position here. Henry's up top. McCaffrey's probably going to miss. Kamara actually got in the end zone and looked decent, but it wasn't that elite. The touchdown kind of skewed his production a little bit. Dalvin Cook missed last week. We'll see what he does. Madison had a great game, was number 2 in rushing, only behind 1 yard behind Derrick Henry, I believe. Aaron Jones is on here. Tough matchup against Pittsburgh, but they're at home. We'll see what the injuries on TJ Watt and Devin Bush are. Nick Chubb, Naji Harris, the man who saw 16 or 15 targets. He ended up seeing 19 targets in this game. When I turned the game off, Naji Harris had 15 receptions, or 12 receptions on 15 targets. Naji Harris gets the 100-yard receiving bonus. Only took him 19 fucking targets to do so. I mean, this is two things. This is Deontay Johnson not being there on those short to intermediate routes for Big Ben. Look at this, 19 fucking targets. And it's also the fact that you do not have out there right now. You do not have out there any sort of quarterback that can throw downfield. Like coming into the week last week, Big Ben said that his shoulder's messed up and it's going to be messed up. Well, that's not good. That's not good for a guy who already looks terrible. And Big Ben was probably one of the worst looking quarterbacks outside of Justin Fields that I've seen last week for sure, but on the entire season, Big Ben looked terrible. I would expect this to continue. We saw Green Bay. They're not the greatest linebacking core by any means. They lost a linebacker in that last game in Barnes, and they have struggled for years to stop the scheme, no matter which defensive coordinator comes in, to stop these schemes of just check down running backs. And like Kyle Juszczyk for the San Francisco 49ers was doing fine. You saw a couple of receptions for Trey Sermon, 1 or 2 receptions. So Najee Harris here looks good. We'll see if there's any other options. Saquon's price only comes up $100 after having 6 receptions, which ties the most that he's seen since week 13 of the 2019 season. So that's good for Saquon. Good that Daniel Jones is checking down to him. Tough matchup, though, versus this New Orleans front. He's going to have to get it done in the receiving game because this offensive line is not giving him anything. I mean, he had 41 rushing yards this past week. Saquon's interesting, though, because of the price point. Madison will be in play. He's at home. He's going to be an underdog, though. Right now, they're only opening up as 1-point dogs, though, so it should be close. Cleveland's run defense does rank number 1 already through 3 weeks. It could be a little bit skewed, of course, because of the data and getting Justin Fields in that Bears offense that looked terrible in that offensive line last week. But Madison, he's going to definitely be in play. He caught a bunch of balls. Madison, if there's no Dalvin Cook, will be the guy that I go to. So we can just put Madison in right here because not only did he have the rushes, right? He had all those rushing yards. He still ended up seeing in the passing game a bunch of receptions. He ended up having in that game 6 receptions on 8 targets, right? The 160-plus total yard game. So assuming there's no Dalvin Cook, we'll go Alexander Madison. If Dalvin Cook plays, obviously don't play him. Zeke plays tonight, continues to be disrespected in his price point for his role on this team, leading all running backs through routes run through 2 weeks. We'll see if that continues. Miles Sanders is here. No, thank you. A home underdog. Jonathan Taylor is here. He's been a 2-down back with Nyheim Hines now stealing goal line touches. Taylor this past week only 11 touchdowns in a game that was a 1-score game for the far majority of that game, to be honest with you. So Taylor's disappointing at this point. He could be an interesting option, though, against Miami now in a GPP format. Jonathan Taylor. So Taylor not for cash. Carson continues to just get you 15 points a week, basically averaging that right now. Get San Fran. Oh, man. DeAndre Swift is here. Yes, please. So DeAndre Swift at $6,200 only comes up in price point by $400. At halftime, he only had 5 points. Then he comes out in the second half, and on the first drive in the second half, catches like 5 balls for 40 yards, gets a couple rushing yards, gets a touchdown, and just like that, you look up and DeAndre Swift has 20 fantasy points after like the first drive of the second quarter. And should have had another rushing touchdown, so it looks like he broke the plane, but they called it back. Then Jamal Williams stole that touchdown. But $6,200 for a guy who is basically on pace right now to probably catch 100 balls as a running back. That is the elite upside. Jared Goff continues to check down to these guys. Jamal Williams has been involved, though. Jamal Williams continues to play a lot. We just saw that last week, but I will still gladly take him at that point. Antonio Gibson had the big reception. Chuba Hubbard, of course, watch at $5,900. That's steep. Like, that's a GPP price because Royce Freeman will be involved. Royce Freeman in that game did have touches, right? He came out of the bench cold, and Royce Freeman was a solid pass-catching running back and a solid running back in general. Did see 6 opportunities in that game. Now, Hubbard saw 17, but he was the direct backup going in. I would not be shocked if it's a 14 opportunity to 10 opportunity game, and then you're overpaying for Hubbard early in the week. That looks like a steep price, at least for cash-type builds. We'll see for GPPs. Henderson, if he plays at $5,600, is a smash play at home as a favorite against this Arizona team, which is a solid matchup. If Henderson plays over Sony Michelle, I'll be interested to see what Sony Michelle's price point is, but a smash play. Clyde Edwards-Helaire scores the touchdown, actually runs well, has a couple of nice receptions. He gets the price bump up now by a couple $100. Javonte scores a touchdown, not really interested. Sony Michelle's here at $5,200. Michelle did decent against Tampa Bay, like one of the best running backs in terms of success over the last 2 years, and it's pretty bad that he still averaged 3.4 yards per carry, but they gave him 24 opportunities. He had 23 touches for 79 yards in this game, and what is the toughest matchup that you will find in football. I mean, not only are you seeing guys like Zeke earlier this year struggle, but Aaron Jones, Alvin Kamara, the combination of those players combined for like 40 yards total last year on the ground. So Sony Michelle is strongly in play for cash formats as a favorite, being involved in the receiving game. I would expect 16 to 18 plus opportunities and all the red zone work and all the touches. So Sony Michelle, if at $5,200, if there's no Darrell Henderson, he's in play. If there is Darrell Henderson, expect some sort of a split, but both of them remain in play. Mike Davis is down here. You still get Cordell Patterson catching a bunch of balls, but Patterson, again, only like 7 carries now back-to-back weeks. Davis is the main RB. You're just getting Patterson in a lot of these out-of-the-backfield swing passes. Trey Sermon's interesting at $5,000. He gets the touchdown, but we'll see if Hasty's ready last week, or not Hasty, he's on IR. If Eli Mitchell is ready this week, that could obviously stagnate anything you want to do with Trey Sermon. Cordell Patterson, like I said, he's going to catch you like 6 balls for 40 yards out of the backfield, and it depends what he does on the ground. He's inefficient on the ground. He's been playing well. I mean, the last 2 weeks he's been playing well. I just don't think it holds up. Now you get this terrible offensive line versus the Washington defensive line. Scary spot. Freeman's here, GPP play at $4,700. All these running backs for the Jets are down here. Not much now is down here, right? These guys are not involved at $4,000. Nothing is standing out. So that's where we'll go with running backs. Maybe we'll get a flex play in a Saquon Barkley or a Najee Harris. But Dak Prescott, Madison, and Swift. If there's no Madison, we just $100 more. You can get Saquon in here. It's as simple as that. As we go through this, let's go to the wide receivers now. And before we go to the wide receivers, I want to let you know about the sponsor of the program. It's Prize Picks. It's just an over-under. You take the over-under on props, on fantasy points. It's that simple. Do you think over or under these things will happen? But the nice thing for you is, especially if you're not really interested in this or you don't want to put the money in, you get a free $100 wager. It's free. Limited time offer. If you use the code SAL on Prize Picks, they're the #1 sponsor of this program. I love what they do over there. So what I took right now, depending on when you're watching this is for the Thursday night football game. Obviously, if you're watching this on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, well, you can just play some props for the Sunday main slate. But a lot of you will watch this before Thursday night. I took the over Marvin Jones 62.5 receiving yards. I have him for about 68 yards. And I took the over Tyler Boyd 56.5. We'll see if T. Higgins plays or not. If T. Higgins does play, well, this doesn't look as good of a number, but I'm still in that neighborhood. And if he doesn't play, we'll take that little bonus there. Then I have Tyler Boyd in the 60s for receiving yards. Put $50 on this. If you hit 1 out of 2, you get some of your money back. If you hit both of them, you win. That's the nice thing about Prize Picks. It does not have to be parlays if you don't want to. So it's as simple as that. You just take the over-under. It's a limited time offer, so FREE, that is free. $100 bet. Free $100 up to a $100 bet. Use the code SAL. It's linked down below. That is Prize Picks. Go play some props for Thursday night. Make that Thursday night game that's not going to look that good on paper. Bengals versus Jaguars, just like last week's game. Just make it a little bit more entertaining. Something at stake for you in there outside of just DFS. Get up in the props, win some $Rooskies. What do you say? Use the code SAL. Let's transition now to the wide receivers, if I do say so myself. So the wide receivers right now, you can see the studs are on the screen. Tyreek Hill, these cover 2s lately, they're doing everything they can to take him away, and it's working through 2 games. I mean, Tyreek Hill, if he comes up with that catch in the middle of the field, he's got like a 95-yard game, maybe the 100-yard bonus, and it's a little bit different towards the end of the game against the Chargers, but still, they're shutting him down. Adams, 132-yard game, touchdown. He's just going to continue to dominate. Nothing on Pittsburgh, especially if Joe Hayden continues to miss. Nothing on Pittsburgh. Nothing in the league, but nothing on Pittsburgh is going to stop him. If you have the money, I'd play Adams this week for sure in cash. I'm going to be trying to play him in GPPs because why not? Finally, Cooper Kupp gets the pricing he deserves as a player who continues to just dominate. Yet again this week, 2 touchdowns. Yet again this week, 10-plus targets. He continues to be the wide receiver 1 in fantasy. He is right now averaging in fantasy football over 30 points per game. These are his fantasy finishes. Just absolutely insane. Look at this beautiful man right here. It's about time somebody got this man into a featured role, a quarterback that can actually contain him for not these underneath passes and just mainly red zone usage. Cooper Kupp, obviously fantastic, but at this point, give me Devontae Adams for a similar price point, even though that game environment is great. Yet again, you're going to see this week high-owned stacks, but not high enough, of Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, This week, you're probably going to get a cheaper Robert Woods. I don't even see him in the pricing yet. The runbacks of anything on Arizona, the 4 to 5 options that Arizona has, this is going to be a great week. That's the game environment, 4 o'clock game. It's going to be the chalk stack. It's going to be the one you want to get different with and sneaky with. Hopkins struggled last week. Now he gets Ramsey. Ramsey moving all around the field, but I would expect a shadow here. He doesn't shadow often, like maybe once out of every 10 games. If there was ever a game to shadow, he did shadow Ramsey back in the day when he was with Jacksonville and Ramsey was on the Texans. And in those matchups, they would win half the time. Hopkins won once or twice, so it will be a tough matchup. Justin Jefferson is on here. Can we continue, or can we start giving Justin Jefferson some credit? Justin Jefferson, right, in a game where they actually were able to run the ball and they used 2 tight ends, so less KJ Osborne, Jefferson continues to get the targets, 11, 10, and 9. Jefferson continues to put up fantasy points. Like his worst games right now, he's still putting you up. I mean, this is his floor, 12 fantasy points, right, for his volume. This is 18.5 last week when KJ Osborne goes off. In the first 2 weeks, KJ Osborne's heavily used. And then a week where they actually want to run the offense that they like to run, and now in a game where it should be a 1-point spread and probably try and run that offense again, meaning run the ball 20 times, run first, play action offense, find Justin Jefferson's, have 2 tight ends on the field, so not a KJ Osborne. I mean, Justin Jefferson has just been fantastic. He continues to be adequately to underpriced, but the ownership is never on him. You got a 30-point game out of him last week with no ownership. The Seattle guys continue to be just like last week, 74 and 7,300 back-to-back in the pricings. I'll continue to prefer DK Metcalf and his 30+% target share and his likely massive penis. Next up is going to be Calvin Ridley's here, Terry McLaurin. These guys don't look like cash options. CeeDee Lamb looks like a cash option, especially since we have Dak Prescott. So CeeDee Lamb stands out. We'll see where Amari is. DJ Moore had the big, he came out for a little while, but the big Thursday night football game, that's definitely a cash option. And look, they're playing Dallas. This looks like a great, already I'm looking at a GPP stack. CeeDee Lamb, Dak, run it back with DJ Moore. We'll see where we get Amari Cooper. Scrolling down now, Debo's here. Looks like Brandon Ayuk's going to be more involved as he should. Brandon Cooks, I mean, why not Brandon Cooks? Brandon Cooks has now basically broken a bunch of records in terms of overall receptions and targets through being a 27-year-old in the NFL very quietly. I mean, Brandon Cooks, since he's come into the league, Brandon Cooks so far, these are his fantasy finishes. Just always underrated. No matter what team he's on, it doesn't matter. In 2015, the wide receiver 13. In 2016, the wide receiver 10. In 2017, the wide receiver 15. In 2018, the wide receiver 13. In 2020, the wide receiver 17. And now in 2021, through 3 weeks of the season, he's a top 10 wide receiver yet again. His worst finish since coming into the league, his worst finish since 2015 has been the wide receiver 17. Yet he continues to go in drafts outside the top 40, yet he continues to be disrespected in the pricing. The pricing is starting to get right here, but Brandon Cooks is $6,400 no matter who the matchup is. I don't care if it's Tre'Davious White out there. He's going to move around. He's going to get into the slot. He's going to be targeted 10 plus times. This is still a fair price point. This guy should be $7,000 plus. We'll take Brandon Cooks there at $6,400, and we'll continue to scroll now as we see Chase Claypool, good GPP option there, especially if you want to skinny stack that with Devontae Adams. Amari Cooper's here. He's got crack ribs. He's about to play on Thursday Night Football. Assuming he does not get hurt. If he does, it's because I didn't see him because he hasn't played yet as of my recording. But assuming he doesn't get hurt at $6,000, yeah, last week he only had 5 targets, or week 2 at least only had 5 targets, but that's because he cracked his ribs and came out, still ran 29 routes. Amari there, if we play him, we get $4,500 to play with. That's fantastic. So let's keep going through wide receivers now. Odell at $5,800 came in and saw a 29% target share. Devonta Smith plays tonight. Great game environment. That's a really good stack option. If you can stack up the Chiefs this week and come back with a cheap-ass Devonta Smith, $5,700, you're going to see a 30% target share as he has been on the year. That's great. Sterling Shepard's banged up, so another reason why maybe we like Saquon Barkley, although Evan Ingram returns can take up some of that usage. Maybe Kadarius Toney takes up some of it if he was to miss. Galladay should benefit from that, but he won't based on the role that he plays in this offense. Cole Beasley has now had 2 13 targets games on the season. Here's Robert Woods. I mean, GPP option yet again. Robert Woods, 6 targets this past week. Robert Woods now is not producing all that much, 19 targets through 3 weeks, so it's not terrible by any means. He'll also have 1 or 2 end rounds. This is yet again another great game environment for this team. Robbie Anderson, great GPP play. If you wanted to go to him over like DJ Moore and get a little bit sneaky with it, they got to get him more involved after paying him that contract. They said they're going to. Jalen Waddle's down here. I'm pretty sure I saw Jalen Waddle catch like 15 balls this week. All right, so Jalen Waddle caught 12 balls for 58 yards. I mean, look at that offense. 12 balls for 58 yards is basically used as a running back. At $4,900, though, like he's seeing the volume, and Jacoby Brissett now seems to trust him. Let's put Jalen Waddle in there at $4,900, give us some salary relief, assuming we can't find another cheap wide receiver. We scroll down through wide receivers. Will Fuller seem to get banged up and also gypped of an overtime reception. Jalen Reagor, AJ Green, Rondell Moore. Yeah, these are guys I don't really want to play. Hardman is yet again a GPP option based on that price point. That's pretty attractive. Scrolling down, Zacchaeus had like a couple of receptions, but it's not anything worthy. Terrace Marshall had a couple of receptions. Again, not really worthy. Had a couple when there was no DJ Moore out there. Cedric Wilson is a little bit overpriced for 4K unless something happens tonight to another receiver. There's not much value wide receivers like Mooney. No thank you in that offense. Van Jefferson, sure, he gets volume, but more of a GPP play. And yeah, not much here. KJ Osborne, if they keep going 2 tight ends, it's not going to look good. He's already, fairly priced. Last week at $3,500, I wasn't interested. I'm not at $37. Like Anthony Miller looked good, but maybe we start to get some guys from Houston to return. We won't get Nico Collins, but maybe we start to get some other guys to return to the offense here. And Anthony Miller in general, it's not the most flashy type of a play. Yeah, this is tough. I don't see any values. Hamler got hurt in that last game. None of these guys are involved in their offense. No thank you, Amon-Ra St. Brown. No thank you, Donovan Peoples-Jones or Campbell. Sadly, I wish Campbell was more involved. I'm not seeing any value. Maybe there's a $3,000 receiver that looks like a great value that I'm just not seeing because you got to scroll through so many guys. But that doesn't feel good. So we got Amari, we got Brandon Cooks, we got Jalen Waddle. We'll take Waddle at $4,900 is like the best value. It's going to be tough. This week, you're not going to be able to pay up a quarterback, at least in cash formats, it doesn't seem. At least we got a lot of great 6K running backs. Let's just put in a quick defense, just a cheap defense to fill this thing out. That's what we did last week, $2,100 defense. Let's see, defenses here, $2,100 Eagles. They can generate pressure against the Chiefs, fine. Oh, but it's a high team total. That's fine. The higher the total, the more the throws, the more opportunities for potential turnovers. So now we have $5,500 left over. We go to tight ends. We won't be able to afford an expensive one, although Kittle is a fair price point. If we play him, we'd have to find like a value 5K player. Doesn't seem like there's a lot. Maybe a Sony Michelle. You can go with like a Kittle and a Sony Michelle. I prefer Kittle to Hawkinson this week. Andrews, Pitts, I don't know what they're doing with him. A top 5 pick, not even being used as wide receiver, but just looks terrible. At least Jamar Chase is scoring touchdowns and moving the needle a little bit for his team. Higbee gets the price bump up. Tonyan is fairly priced. Font's not seeing much volume in that offense. This is definitely the play. This is the Higbee play from last week. Mike Gesicki got like 6 targets on the final drive for Miami. A lot of it was in overtime, so just keep in mind that, basically half of these receptions came in overtime for Mike Gesicki, but maybe that starts to get a little bit of a connection going with, and the Raiders will give up to the tight ends and running backs out of the backfield, but maybe that gets a little bit going now between him and Jacoby Brissett. Gesicki, the 10-catch game. Don't expect that again, though, but the 10-catch game was targeted late in the second week when Jacoby Brissett came in. 5 times by Brissett in that game. In this game, in regulation, he only, I think, had 6 or 7 targets, so overtime obviously skewed his numbers a good amount, but Gesicki just stands out. $4,000. Do we find somebody else as good as that? Hooper scored a touchdown, not much volume. Tyler Conklin is a name, though. Like, if this game stays close and it doesn't get out of control, you're going to have here Tyler Conklin. Like, Tyler Conklin, 7 catches on 8 targets for 70 yards because they were in 2 tight end formats and less KJ Osborne on the field. You just know Mike Gesicki's role is going to be there, though. But that is the way Tyler Conklin gets you there. For a $500 discount off of Mike Gesicki, if that gets you up to a more elite quarterback or a more elite wide receiver, go for it. I'm trying to see if there's anything else down here. I think Gerald Everett had a decent game. They have 5 catches, 55 yards, you can see right here. That's a fine game, but he's not running a lot of routes. Last week we saw a little bit more of that. Should be another good game environment. $3,200 Everett. So these are the tight ends. Like Everett, Tyler Conklin, Gesicki, if you're trying to find a value one. Evan Ingram's in here, especially if there's no Sterling Shepard. Ingram did not produce, but he did see 6 targets, and now there's no Sterling Shepard. Daniel Jones does like Evan Ingram. That's a nice, cheap $3,000 price point. I'm fine to punt that price point in cash. I'm also fine to play that in a GPP. That's a nice $1,000 discount off of Mike Gesicki. Maybe we'll build that into the GPP line. But let's just keep Gesicki for now. What does that leave us with? It leaves us with $7,100. That's a lot of money that we have to spend right now for a flex. That's fantastic. And if you went down and you got off of Mike Gesicki to Evan Ingram, you can just play Devontae Adams, which is probably the move, because for $7,100, we can play Tyler Lockett, Nick Chubb, Ridley, but I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to go down to Evan Ingram or $3,200 Gerald Everett. Really, whichever one you want to play here. Even if you go to Everett, I think, you can still afford Devontae Adams. And Adams plays the 4 o'clock game. Look at that. Beautiful. That works out beautiful for us. I was going to play Mike Gesicki, but if you're telling me it's Mike Gesicki and Calvin Ridley or Devontae Adams and Gerald Everett, I'll just take Devontae Adams security. I'll take the fact that Gerald Everett could be the exact same player as Mike Gesicki, honestly. And there you go. There's a cash-based lineup. Dak Prescott, the security that he brings in the high total games. You get his top wide receiver, Amari Cooper, as long as he's healthy. You get Alexander Madison. Now, Madison is $6,600, so to get up to like a Naji Harris, if you want to play Naji Harris, you would have to come down. And here's another thing you can do. You can just go right here. If you didn't want to play Alexander Madison, or just say Alexander Madison is not the guy this week, say he's not the guy this week because Dalvin Cook is there, then you just go to Evan Ingram and you come up right here and bang, just beautiful like that. You could also get like a skinny stack in here now with Naji Harris and Devontae. You just go to Evan Ingram, who does probably not have Sterling Shepard, we'll see, and I get Naji Harris and his 25 plus touches. I like DeAndre Swift for the price point. Obviously, you don't feel as secure with 20 touch volume, but in this matchup, you might actually see it if the game stays close. Should stay close here. Brandon Cooks in his volume, Jalen Waddle in his projected volume, and really just the price point. Devontae Adams, Evan Ingram, we like to see what we're seeing right here. This feels very secure. If we wanted to very quickly turn this into, by the way, hit the like and subscribe if you're not already. If we wanted to very quickly just turn this into a GPP lineup, let's just take out some of these other wide receivers, leave an Amari Cooper, take out some of these other wide receivers, and just start building the CeeDee Lamb, the Dallas stack, right? So let's just go with CeeDee Lamb here with Amari Cooper. We'll run it back to get different. Instead of DJ Moore to save some money, let's run it back with Robbie Anderson, right? That gets us different. That saves us money. He's like $1,500 off, it seems, from DJ Moore's price point. So we can keep the same running backs in here. You can switch them if you want. If you wanted to switch Swift to a Jonathan Taylor for $100 more to get different, that could be interesting. So we can keep these same running backs. Tight end and a flex here. We have $5,200 left for each. It depends on how much you want to spend at tight end. You could easily afford, if you wanted to, George Kittle. You can go right back to Kyle Pitts now with people down on him this week. I'm completely fine sticking with Evan Ingram and seeing what happens during the week, because if we get Evan Ingram in here at $7,400, we have, or if we get him in here at $3,000, we have $7,400 now for our flex. So a $7,400 flex this week can pay for a, look at that, Justin Jefferson. I don't know what time Justin Jefferson plays compared to these Cowboys, but let's just see what happens here. Justin Jefferson, and the reason I'm saying that is you want to put your late players into, so he plays at noon. The Cowboys are going to be playing, I believe, at noon as well, so it doesn't really matter. They're both playing at the same time, but if Justin Jefferson was playing in the later games, you definitely want to get him into the flex just in case you want to change out that player to make up some ground if your first players don't play as well. But this looks like a pretty solid cash lineup. You get the pass catching running backs, the elite upside in Naji Harris and Swift, Dak with CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper, run back with Robbie Anderson and his upside. Hasn't played well this year, but they say they want to get him more involved. Evan Ingram is a punt tight end, but 6 targets last week. Should see more if there's no Shepard. Jefferson is just going to Jefferson. He's fantastic. And yeah, that is as simple as that. There's your GPP and your cash lineups for week 4. Again, this is just for fun. It's early week. They're still solid lineups. Like I'm trying here. We have information. We're using it, but we're going to get way more information from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right? Injuries, news, role changes, a bunch of matchups we can look deeper into. And that's why you should hit the subscribe and notification bell so you know when they're all dropping on this channel, because all that stuff will be covered on this channel. So thank you for tuning in. I'll see you all in the next one. You all rock. Be sure to support the sponsor of the program. Go get that free $100 bet on Prize Picks right now. Why not? It's free. No risk right there. So try it out down below. Use that code SAL. I'll see you all in the Patreon Discord with all the Patreon tools. That's all linked down below as well. Peace out, gang. This is fun. The first look for week 4. How about that? Best of luck this week.